said, you can have whatever you like. Americans love that. You can have whatever you like. That's the trick. Learn to live simple. They hate it. Learn to say, I'm good, you can keep it. They hate it. Walk with God, walk with law, and never give up your gun.
Since the Colorado theater shooting, most of the media has wanted to jump all over the issue of whether or not AR-15 rifles and assault weapons should even be sold to the public. It is the same story every time an incident like this happens. Most of the arguments wind up centered on the Second Amendment. So what was the Second Amendment really about, and what does it protect? These kind of weapons. Ben has the reality check you won't see anywhere else.
Immediately following the Colorado theater shooting, the national media had already resigned themselves to pontificating over the Second Amendment and the role of guns in society. Hours after that shooting in Aurora, Colorado, CNN's Piers Morgan asked this question. Quote, you tell me a good reason why we should not strengthen the law now to stop another young man like him going into a store tomorrow, buying 4 more weapons, 6,000 rounds of ammunition on the internet, and killing and shooting another 70 people in America. Now, Piers is simply pushing a political agenda rather than looking at the facts. I told you last night that national media are ignoring major troubling questions about what happened in Colorado, and we're working on more on that coming up in the next few weeks. But tonight, we're looking at the Second Amendment. I have to warn you, though, because the Second Amendment is very politically incorrect, and the man who helped bring that to light last week, rapper Ice-T.
Yeah, it's legal in the United States. It's part of our Constitution. You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny, not to hunt.
And the thing is, Ice-T is historically correct. The Second Amendment is fairly simple, stating, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and to bear arms shall not be infringed. To be clear, the militia is not regular military. They were farmers and blacksmiths who went about their daily lives. But notice that the amendment says this is for the security of a free state. According to the 1828 dictionary and other historical documents of that day, they refer to a state as an independent nation. The Second Amendment was put in place to remind the newly formed federal or general government that each state's citizenry would be armed and ready to defend themselves should the need arise. Remember, the United States was a plural term. So what you need to know? If people like Piers Morgan want to have a real discussion on the Second Amendment, then it needs to be an honest discussion. The Second Amendment is about tyranny, not about hunting or about sport. And many Americans, frankly, don't like that. It's an uncomfortable idea. Look, you may believe that protecting yourself from government is ludicrous. And yet the ability for citizens to have not just the power to elect and to choose leaders, but also the power to protect themselves violently, if necessary, from tyranny is historically what the founders created. Maybe the reason we aren't having honest debates about guns in this country or the Second Amendment is because we aren't honest about why those guns were allowed in the first place. And that is Reality Check.
If you'd like to make your voice heard on the story, head over to Ben's Facebook page. Find it by searching Ben Swan, WXIX.
I've also asked the school board to make a part of every day some kind of anti-violence, anti-gun message. Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way. We just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people and just really brainwash people.
Brainwash people into... That's the trick! Learn to live simple, walk with law, and never give up your gun.
Hello, my name is Aaron Weiss, and I live in the town of Poughkeepsie. I'm a combat veteran of Iraq, and I'm also a law enforcement officer. I attended the Public Safety Committee's last meeting in regards to this resolution, but I didn't say anything because I wanted to hear what everyone else had to say. and I heard some shocking things from some people and some legislators. They said that it took a lot of courage to pass this SAFE Act. Apparently my definition of courage differs from yours. You see, if it was really so courageous a bill and it took so much courage to pass it, then why was it done in the middle of the night when no one could see it or read it? That's not courage. That's a mafia-style sit-down to divvy up what's good for the bosses. Courage is taking the right and true course of action, not the politically expedient one. And anyone who is proud of this law must also be proud of the Patriot Act, the TSA, imprisoning Japanese citizens in World War II, since all these actions were spurred on by emotional fear and rammed through in the name of public safety. Another issue is the insistence of certain people to stand on the graves of dead children and challenge those that disagree to say it to the parents' faces. Well, I, for one, will pick up that gauntlet. First off, why is dead children your battle cry? You didn't say anything about the hundreds of Chicago children being killed, and for some reason you only scream when it happens to wealthy white ones. And yes, I will say to anyone's face, my right is more important than your dead, because I fought for it firsthand. I washed the blood of my friends out of my Humvee, and I picked up their mangled bodies, and I fought day in and day out. I did more things that you people can't imagine. So yeah, my right trumps your dead. I earned it in blood. I gave up a lot for this country, including my youth, and better men than me gave up a whole lot more, so that all you, myself included, could enjoy the rights that are guaranteed to us in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. And we didn't go through all that to come back home and watch the surrender of what we fought for happen based on the demented actions of a couple madmen. So in closing, I would like to address specifically the legislators we all know who are going to vote against this resolution. I understand you will vote against this resolution based on some misguided sense of the public good. However, as a law enforcement officer, I'm curious to know about your true resolve. Since voting to take away someone's rights is totally different than being asked to enforce it, I want you to consider this. If you support the SAFE Act so wholeheartedly, are you willing to stand with law enforcement members and lead from the front to enforcement? And what I mean by that is if a constituent of yours feels so alienated by this law and the manner in which it was passed that they refuse to comply with it, are you willing to stack up on their front door and go in first? I bet if a clause was in this bill that required you, the elected leadership, our elected leaders, to go in the door first, I bet you would not be so steadfast.
It's people who are pro-gun. It's the people who are returning veterans. It's the people who actually care about what it means to be an American. And it also states that some individuals, i.e. the operators, may be conducting suspicious activity designed to prepare them for complex environments. What complex environment? You mean America? Yeah, I think that would be a very complex environment if the government tries to turn the military on its own citizens.
So what do you call that kind of a vehicle?
This is a MRAP, they call it.
MRAP, wow.
So it's a military surplus vehicle the military went away from.
But now the local police are using it. So I'm thinking that is totally appropriate in Iraq, but what kind of a situation in the U.S. would you see that happening?
I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons, a lot of ammunition. I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons, a lot of ammunition. They have weapons here locally.
Outright ban, picking up every one of them. Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in.
So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
I have two words for you: predator drones. You will never see it coming. You think I'm joking?
Cyberspace is presenting us with some of the most profound challenges.
Much of what makes cyber so challenging is that technology is changing so rapidly, and society along with it. In many respects, the world is transforming before our eyes as more and more human activity migrates to that cyber digital domain, and more of our daily lives depend on that domain for social interactions, financial transactions, commerce, trade, communication, education, information, entertainment, and the list goes on and on. But the fact remains that many technological and scientific advances have proved throughout history to be double-edged swords.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
And get a tap onto that cell phone, or those cell phones that are being are being used, or the electronic communications that are being used to transmit those messages.
To battle with extremists online. We need more of that, including from the private sector.
So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
Social media companies can also do their part by swiftly shutting down terrorist accounts so they're not used to plan, provoke, or celebrate violence.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA. Cycling about two. Online or offline, the bottom line is that we are in a contest of ideas. We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Had a cybersecurity summit a few weeks ago, in which you could see that our national leadership at every level is really seized with the need to get on top of this problem.
Make sure that you can put intelligence gathering as the top priority.
About what you do with big data, and American industry discovers many things. I was on a panel a year or two ago with Keith Alexander, my successor at NSA, and Eric Schmidt from Google. And we were talking about the NSA metadatabase, you know, the phone bill thing up there. And Eric was just going on saying, look, I understand why these guys want to do it. You run powerful algorithms against this database, you establish relationships, you learn this, you learn that, and it goes on and on. And the fact of the matter is, creating a door for the government to enter at the technological level. Recall back in the 90s where we were going to guarantee that in the chip there would be a way in?
Big Brother is watching. There's a nationwide push to start tracking where children are during school hours. They would basically be microchipped, kind of like a pet.
And Mike, using the same arguments that Director Comey is using, Mike fell on the sword, and he lost. Mike will tell you now, and thus began the greatest 15 years of electronic surveillance in the history of the National Security Agency. We figured out ways to get around it. Now, before any civil libertarians here want to come up to me afterwards and get my autograph, all right, let me tell you how we got around it. Bulk data and metadata, all right? All right, because frankly, intelligence gets to break all other sorts of rules and to cheat and to use alternative paths. And so I'm saying that to say that I'm speaking kind of absolute terms, but I get Jim Comey's point of view.
I would have actually liked to seen this go further, but this is very important that we bring this forward.
And I would add that Senator Lieberman would have gone further than you, and nobody I respect more than Senator Lieberman, but trying to find a balanced way. So in summary here, 1032, the military custody provision, which has waivers and a lot of flexibility, doesn't apply to American citizens. 1031, the statement of authority to detain, does apply to American citizens, and it designates the world as the battlefield, including the homeland.
Someone in the back there with the blue shirt. There you go, that gentleman there.
Hi, Greg Charney from Charney Research. General Hayden stated that we needed to go on the offensive. I'm wondering what that actually implies. That implies some kind of military commitment in between. In addition, there's the old Powell rule, the Pottery Barn rule. If you break it, you own it. And we've discovered that there's a fairly extensive amount of reconstruction required in these societies. Obviously, we're prepared to take actions here in the homeland. Are we really prepared to take make the kind of commitments that are required abroad to stem this tide?
Yeah, let me give you a corollary of General Powell's rule. If it gets broken, we appear to own it. All right? Seriously.
Well, the best that Winston Churchill said. That's right. The problem with committing political suicide is you live to regret it.
He always had the last word.
And then after that, we've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
so what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. That's why we have global warming.
For decades, this dinner has been an important gathering time for supporters of the UN. That's why 14 years ago I chose this dinner as the occasion to announce the commitment to help fund the United Nations by forming the UN Foundation. I love the UN and I'm proud to support it every day. One of the chief reasons the relationship.
We've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. Every day, we've got to stabilize the population.
If there's no United Nations, there's no more humanity.
The negative impact of population growth. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
$10 billion over the next 10 years to make it the year of the vaccines. What does that mean exactly?
Well, over this decade, we believe unbelievable progress can be made, both inventing new vaccines and making sure they get out to all the children who need them. The benefits there in terms of reducing sickness, reducing the population growth, it really allows a society a chance to take care of itself once you've made that intervention. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is unusual for a member of the philanthropic sector to be given the opportunity to address heads of state here at the United Nations. I'm honored by it, and I'm also encouraged. I see it as a sign of partnership, that the world understands that no sector acting alone can achieve the goals for humanity that are the mission of the United Nations. Reducing the population growth.
We've got to stabilize the population.
A satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
It is crucial to evaluate our performance, but I think it's also important at this point to evaluate the goals themselves as a force for change. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%, reducing the population growth. If you gave me only one wish for the next 50 years, I can pick who's president, I can pick a vaccine, which is something I love. This is the wish I would pick. This is the one with the greatest impact, reducing the population growth. So what do we have to do? What am I appealing to you to step forward and drive? Reducing the population growth, including the steps that the government takes. This is an important wish, but it is one I think we can achieve. Thank you. Thank you. Reducing the population growth.
The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
We've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
so what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people.
But in order to most effectively commit genocide against you, they need you to be disarmed. And so it is that they're working on just that.
With their little arms trade treaty on how to make you a disarmed slave.
Can't wait for Congress to do its job. So where they won't act, I will. And I've told my administration, we're going to look every single day to figure out what we can do without Congress. What can we do without
I don't know why that's funny. I mean, did you have any in-person briefings? I don't find it funny at all.
I'm going to be running for president regardless, and I'm going to be continuing to put forth my policies. Obviously, I was proud to be a member of President Obama's cabinet, but I also have ideas where I want to go, not just build on what was done, but go beyond. And I will be laying that out. This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
China is sending a combat unit on UN peacekeeping duties. The 700 troops will be the largest so far China has sent on UN peacekeeping missions. The troops will be involved in
I want to thank the United Nations for hosting today's events.
But since this year, China started deploying infantry battalions.
And it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
This will require them to undertake long-distance travel and spend a long time away from their headquarters. Soldiers are equipped with light weapons and each has had to master at least 2 kinds of weapons. Adjustments have been made to nearly 200 vehicles, so they're better accustomed to the local weather and terrain. Windows have also been added to vehicles so weapons can be fired from them. All the vehicles are equipped with 3 sets of telecommunication systems in order to make patrolling at night convenient.
Hillary Clinton has described already the meeting in the White House over 2 years ago. Everyone in the national security team recommended arming ISIS, and the president.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. More Sunni volunteers are coming forward. Some are already being trained, and they can be a new force.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
We had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else.
Alarming new images of American-made weapons falling into the hands of ISIS. M16s, heavy machine guns.
American armored vehicles and Humvees, and left behind a trail of death.
I don't know why that's funny. I mean, did you have any in-person briefings? I don't find it funny at all.
I'm sorry, a little note of levity at 7:15.
Well, I mean, the reason I say it's not
record.
funny is because it went well into the night when our folks on the ground were still in danger. So I don't think it's funny to ask you if you were alone the whole night.
Congresswoman, you asked if I had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else.
Rifles, ammunition, armored personnel carriers, Humvees. But this is a scene that's been replayed a variety of times.
I want to thank the United Nations for hosting today's events. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City. But it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
Put policy prescriptions before the president. After all, that's our job.
They make the decision.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. More Sunni volunteers are coming forward.
Sarah Wolf is a spokesperson for the Westlands Water District, a company that oversees the man-made complicated water delivery system in the Central Valley.
How many years has this been the process? It was completed in 1968.
Okay, so decades.
Yes.
All the farmers along all this land, which is 2/3 of the state of California, have depended on water to grow their crops. But the water's turned off here, so none of these farmers can expect to get any water.
That's correct.
2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this. This was a canal full of gushing water irrigating the farmland here in the San Joaquin Valley. But as you can see, it is all dried up. One lawmaker in Washington is fighting back.
You're spending $1 trillion, and you won't put in one provision that would save 60,000 jobs. This is an insult to my constituents.
What we have today is a man-made drought brought on by laws passed by Congress to where we're taking the breadbasket of the world and starving it of water.
Farmers who have watched their land go from this to this.
shutting off water for farms that have been there for what, generations?
Generations, third-generation farmers, Sean. Their grandfathers were out there, blood, sweat, and tears to making sure those crops were going to grow so that you and I would have fruits and vegetables, and they're shutting it down.
Literally, these farmers, their farms are now dried up. There's no water. There's no production. People are losing their job. How many people are out of work there?
Well, you know, the system varies, but a lot of people here aren't working. That's why we're here. You know, we're here to show America this is our own town hall meeting here, Sean. This is, you know, we're so wrapped up in this issue, we don't have time to worry about health care because everything around us is dead. Our way of life is dying here. We really, we've tried to have the administration come to see about us. We haven't heard. They sent the Secretary of the Interior here. He gave us some nice lip service and said, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But at the end of the thing, we didn't get no water. Our fields are drying out. Something has to be done.
Now, Congressman, first, Paul, you were an Obama supporter.
Yes, absolutely. Like everybody else, we wanted change. We didn't think it was be this kind of change. But, you know, he kept his promise. We got change.
Fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Winds whip flame into brilliant spires, exploding over ridges, creating tornadoes of flame, showering sparks that create
Virginia
spot
shooting
fires.
hoax father, 100% confirmed actor sellout. Yep. Turns out he's an F-rated actor just like Robbie Parker. Go figure. This in the 99 percentile there, so definitely check that out. We pretty much already knew it was a hoax, though. That's just icing on the cake with a cherry on top as well. But if you look at the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs with their Arms Trade Treaty,
I want to thank the United Nations for hosting today's events.
they had the first Conference of States on the 24th through the 27th of August. And then, of course, it was on the 26th, right in the middle of that 3-day span there, that the false flag went down, August 26th. And of course, the thing from the very get-go stunk to high heaven. And sure enough, it turns out they're using F-rated actors. The UN's coming to snatch your guns with problem action solutions. So there you have it. Oh, before I get into their long-term agenda, let me show you that the deadline for the first annual report on disarming you is the 31st of May 2016. So that's relatively close by.
I want to thank the United Nations.
Also, here in this text is language pertaining to the fact that Rothschild and Rockefeller will be installing Hillary Clinton. For instance, they seek to realize the human rights of all and achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls.
And declared with one voice that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. And because of advances in health, education, and legal protections, we can say that there has never been a better time in history to be born female.
So they make a point to say that, just like Hillary Clinton did right there. But then you should look at the Hillary Clinton tapes where she openly supports rapists and got caught on tape. Not to mention the United Nations is full of genocidal psychopaths. As pointed out in this video here, the UN just got owned. And that they did. Also, little bits and pieces of UN Agenda 21 disarmament are still leaking out here and there. For instance, Seattle had a tax imposed on them, some sanctions against the Second Amendment, which they called the gun violence tax, which the NRA is currently suing the officials that implemented that illegally over. So, yep, trying to put sanctions on the Second Amendment like always. And Hillary Clinton here, along with her handler, came out on the 26th of August, the same day as the false flag. And she's talking basically as if she's got it in the bag, which she does, because she will be installed by Rothschild and Rockefeller.
I'm going to be running for president regardless, and I'm going to be continuing to put forth my policies. Obviously, I was proud to be a member of President Obama's cabinet. But I also have ideas where I want to go, not just build on what was done, but
County
go beyond.
police officers, a canine, kneel behind trees near a Springfield, Virginia townhouse. Now take a look at this. Another officer stands with his gun pointed directly at the suspect. The suspect is shown with the screen door open, dressed in shorts, a white shirt. Police say the man barricaded himself in the home and they negotiated with him for 40 minutes. At some point, Fairfax County Police fired at least one shot, killing the man this evening. Neighbors tell me they only heard one shot.
Seemed like a good guy.
Tonight, Erica Epps tells me she's been the man's neighbor for 9 years. She's even hung out with his family in their townhouse.
I feel really bad for the wife and children. You know, we know the kids. My daughter played with them. You know, really good kids. It just breaks my heart.
Tonight, police tell me this all started around 2:40 this evening. Police received a 911 call from a woman telling them the man has weapons. Police drove to the 7900 block of Pebblebrook Court. They negotiated with the man.
He refused to come outside, and he would not allow officers inside.
At some point, something happened in those negotiations, and an officer fired the shot.
Next thing I know, there's a police officer at my car door saying you need to get out of the area right now.
Police surrounded the home, knocked down the front door with a police tanker. The SWAT team found the body inside. We don't know why police fired or what they found inside the home.
We are investigating this as an officer-involved shooting.
I've also learned that the suspect's common-law wife is a DEA employee. Agents actually came out here earlier today, and she is talking with police. That is the very latest.
So based on that news report, here's my conclusion. You might find this rather interesting and disturbing. Lawful gun owner is inside his house with a female occupant. Female occupant spots firearms, freaks out because she watches too much Piers Morgan and thinks guns are instruments of terrorists.
Deport British citizen Piers Morgan for attacking Second Amendment.
Calls the cops. The cops show up in military force because we live in a police state. The guy is confronted by modern-day SS officers. The guy is freaked out because he's wondering why he has a small army outside of his lawn. They state that some females spotted weapons inside the house and they're here to search the place and turn it upside down. He states, with much distress, exercising my Second Amendment rights is not grounds for this small SS army to come to my house, tear it upside down, so no, you're not coming in the house, and no, I'm not going to cooperate with you. Get the hell out of here. Of course, the SS officers don't leave, and he has some hot shot with a badge, thinks he's reaching for a weapon, or gets a little nervous because his hands aren't visible. Take the shot and kill the guy. Welcome to the police state, people, where the zombies watch Piers Morgan and the cops come kill you for exercising your Second Amendment rights.
I've said in videos that I can't do these reruns of these shootings, whether school or not. I just can't get into them anymore. It's so blatantly obvious that they are orchestrated, and then when they immediately come out and start talking about gun control, look, it is not the people who are behind these agendas, orchestrating these agendas, that I care about. These people are so damaged that there's no getting through to them. They just want to achieve their ends. It is our fellow Americans who are so unbelievably lazy. It's laziness. That they don't do the research to find out what is all of this insanity about. What is going on in our country? No, they prefer to just listen to lies. And lying, accepting lies, it is so easy and it demands nothing of you. The truth, and actually using your brain to realize, hey, maybe gun control isn't the answer. Maybe I should really think about this. Maybe I should turn on my critical thinking in my brain and really think about gun control. Well, are the guns walking into the schools and pulling the trigger themselves? No. Okay. So maybe we should look for the root cause. The individual who is shooting up children. Now, understand this? Please, just imagine that these school shootings are real, okay? And put yourself in the shoes of just ordinary Americans who are believing the horseshit that they get from mainstream media, all right? And their leaders, okay? They hear, oh my God, a shooting in school, 17 children dead. Gun control, gun control, gun control. Let me think about this. See, a healthy human being would want to get to the root cause. and understanding that the gun itself is not the issue. It is, in fact, the person who's shooting it. The individual. There's something wrong with the individual. What's wrong with the individual? You might want to ask. Do we have societal problems? Wow, we do. Do we have parenting problems? Wow, we do. But no, we're going to go and talk about gun control as if that is going to resolve these shootings. I think most people would agree that when you ban something, you create a really profitable black market for that thing you banned. And if a criminal wants a gun, they're going to get a gun. If a criminal wants an AR-15, they're going to get an AR-15. So that's not the answer. But what we have been conditioned to hear after every school shooting in particular is common sense legislation. Common sense gun control legislation. We need common sense, common sense, common sense gun control legislation. So, Americans who don't think and who truly are children, they just listening to their leaders, their mainstream media reporters give them the information. The reporters tell them what the politicians want to do. And like children, they go, okay, mommy and daddy, okay, that's good. Let me just get back to my Xbox, my PlayStation, whatever the hell those games are called. That is, unfortunately, the condition of the majority of adults in our country. They don't want to have to think. They don't want to have to get really, they certainly don't want to think outside the box because that requires a lot of energy. They don't want to do the research to find out what the truth is. They just want that immediate gratification. Okay, take away the guns. As if that's going to make them safe. Take away my rights. Take away. Let's destroy the Constitution. Let's get rid of the Second Amendment. You know, that amendment that said something about, shall not be infringed. No, let's infringe it. Infringe it more. Infringe it more. And infringe it until it's finally gone and all guns are gone. And then Americans are left with no protection themselves. Yeah, that's really intelligent. That's a really smart move, Americans. But you are being led right down that path. Now, so this march obviously was in the works before the Florida shooting. FBI comes out with this statement. January 5, 2018, a person close to Nicholas Cruz contacted the FBI's public access line, tip line, to report concerns about him. The caller provided information about Cruz's gun ownership, desire to kill people, erratic behavior, disturbing social media posts, as well as the potential of him conducting a school shooting who is not questioning the public statement, and this is on the FBI's website. Anybody who's not questioning the FBI coming out publicly stating, oops, sorry, we have spoken with victims and families and deeply regret the additional pain this causes. We just failed every protocol. And it wasn't just one person. It was a whole lot of people. So what is this about? What is it about when we have the Broward County Sheriff who claims that he's so transparent. He loves transparency. And transparency told him, I got to tell Americans that we had a resource officer who simply did nothing when children were being massacred. We got to come out and publicly state that. Now, we all know that law enforcement, federal, local, doesn't matter, state, what they don't want out to the public, they conceal. Oh, but he's right on that. Got to tell you guys, hey, we had that resource officer and, well, he wasn't doing anything. Man, well, We also had a drill going on, so maybe that's why he wasn't doing anything. All right, but that is aside, irrelevant to what I'm saying. Why are they coming out saying this? Oh, and that was just a couple of days ago that he said that about a resource officer right at retirement age. He suspends with no pay. The resource officer says, I'm going to retire. I want my benefits. And he gets those benefits, the retirement benefits. Everything is orchestrated. Everything is intentional, deliberate. So today we have shocked and outraged 4 Broward deputies waited outside the school as children were being massacred. Oh my God, it wasn't just 1, it was now 5, 4 of them. An additional 4. What the hell is going on? Human failure. Law enforcement. They show up to the school, they listen to the bullets, but they're on break. So, it's not just about gun control. Something else is happening here. And one of the things that is happening here, I believe, is to condition American people to believe that they can't rely on any human for anything, and to bring in artificial intelligence, pre-crime algorithms, pick these people up before they commit the crime. We had the same Broward County sheriff who's calling for detaining people over social media posts. Well, you could have just shown up at that kid's house and questioned him about those social media posts. Because we sure do know local law enforcement, state law enforcement, federal law enforcement, they're all viewing our social media posts. They're reading emails. They're reading comments. They're reading comments on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, etc. So, with all of the surveillance that is taking place now to keep Americans safe, the police state that has manifested to keep Americans safe. Oh, what did we hear right after 9/11? We heard an awful lot of talk. Even Obama did an awful lot of talk about how those terrorists, they weren't going to do anything to take away our values and traditions and our rights, as they were stripping us of our rights. So, Americans allowed that to happen, and it got us nowhere, except into a deeper and darker police state. And, yeah, every single day we get deeper and darker. But the common sense thing, you know, it really, it's getting to me, because it makes no common sense. You know, it's common sense gun control legislation. In this particular school shooting, why is everybody talking about gun control legislation and nobody's talking about, hey, our FBI? Wouldn't it be common sense to talk about our FBI failing? Wouldn't it be common sense to talk about those local law enforcers who just, yeah, I hear those bullets, but hey, I'm on my coffee break? No. Wouldn't it be common sense to talk about psychiatric drugs? We have known for decades that psychiatric medications have produced so much violence. Psychiatric medications induce homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation, cause violent behavior. Psychiatric medications, the adverse effects, mimic mental illness. It's all over the place in terms of how many people know about the violence-inducing effects of psychiatric medications. Mountains of facts and evidence. And we all know that this is a leftist liberal agenda to deprive Americans of their guns. And this makes me sick. It does. Because what we are surrounded by are just really incredibly dumbed down Americans. Lazy Americans who just don't want to do anything. Hey, I got my comfort. I like it. Leave me alone. Go away with your truth. But the hypocrisy, the disgusting hypocrisy that we live. As a nation debates gun control, U.S. military wants $716 billion for next year so we can kill kids in other countries. But don't care about that. Only care about those Florida kids. And oh, yes, those Newtown, Connecticut kids. Oh my God! Oh my God! 17 children! Oh my God! These children are made up. I don't care about the children that we're killing in our name. I don't care about those children. And hell, don't they have dark skin? Who cares? They're different from us. So, let's write out a check to the IRS so our military can kill more children. Yeah, I have a problem with that. But the school drill, how is mainstream media spinning that? All right. So, we have the FBI failing, local law enforcement showing up, but I'm on a coffee break. Yeah, okay. Children are being massacred. I'll be right there. And we had a drill. Somehow, we're not going to have that discussion. Hell, there was a drill going on. The police, the FBI. Common sense would dictate a conversation about that. No, gun control legislation. Active shooter training didn't help in the Florida high school shooting. Whoops, sorry. And how did the Daily Beast spin it? Oh, he took advantage of that. He made sick use of the school's active shooter drill. So parents, South Carolinian parents, Florida parents, other states that want to now mandate active shooter drills, does that make common sense when shooters now are making sick use of these drills to go in and shoot up your kids? Maybe active shooter drills is really not a very good idea. I don't even know how to address the non-common sense, the common nonsense, I don't know how to address it any longer. But these people are doing whatever the hell they want to do because we don't have fellow Americans who can think right, who can think, who care to think. They just want these people, fix it, resolve it. Yeah, take away those guns. That'll do it. No, it won't. At all. Not at all. It just moves us further along to a really profoundly evil police state that seems to be manifesting itself.
It becomes much less ambiguous if we write it in modern colloquial English. People can make the connection because of the way it's written that the well-regulated militia that is being talked about is indeed the people. Because if it wasn't, why would you say then the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? See, these two phrases cannot be separated from each other and taken out of context. They're together. So then you have to understand, well, then what is meant by the militia? What did the founders, the writers of the Second Amendment actually mean by the militia? And people think that they can read their own interpretation into this. I swear, if I hear another moron saying that the word militia meant colonial militias back around the time that the Constitution was written, they're imbeciles. They're complete morons. That's not what the word militia meant. It didn't mean that then, and it doesn't mean that today. And they think because the state militia in whatever state happened to have been dissolved, the official state militia was dissolved in the past, that means the militia doesn't exist anymore. And again, they're wrong. They have no long view of history. They don't understand anything that the founders of this country were trying to embed into people's mind. And they warned them over and over and over, don't let these ideas be lost, understand them well, and we didn't heed their words. And that's why you have a bunch of socialist-educated idiots out there today who actually believe the crap that they're taught in the indoctrination system called public schooling. That there's somehow interpretation that can be applied to the Second Amendment, when there is no such thing. The word militia was very, very, very clearly defined by, wow, magically, the people who wrote the Second Amendment. Imagine that you need to go no further than the people who actually wrote it. George Mason, James Madison, and they would be all too happy to tell you and did leave it to posterity in their writings what was the militia. And I had a quote, and it's also up this week on the image section, image number 5, by James Madison, co-author of the Second Amendment. What is the militia? It is the whole people, which is why the phrase that follows, since a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's because the militia is all of the people. That's simply what it is. It is all people that are capable of brandishing arms. That's it. Of using arms for their self-defense. That is who the militia is. And if you think that it's not, you're wrong. That's it. You're incorrect. That is what it actually is. It is not some sub-entity of government. It is not some paramilitary group. It is the people. That's it. You are the militia. If you can pick up a weapon, aim it, fire it, you're the militia. Surprise! Most people don't know that because they've been lied to and misled and told that this is something that existed 200 and some odd years ago and it doesn't exist today. Wrong. You're incorrect. That's a lie. That's a deliberate obfuscation or, quite frankly, just a lie. George Mason, one of the people who wrote the Second Amendment, said, what is the militia? It is the whole people. To disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. To disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to know if anyone can call in and propose how you could be more unambiguous. Please make a suggestion to me, because I can't see how it could possibly be less ambiguous. There's no statement that is less ambiguous than that. That's about as unambiguous as it gets. You cannot confuse that meaning with that statement. What is the militia? It is the whole people. And if you take arms away from the people, you're going to end up with an enslaved populace. And if you want to see from a long historical point of view how that process has traditionally come about, and only in really modern examples, I mean, you can go back even farther into the ancient world and see any time that tyranny was coming in, they tried to take away whatever arms were available to the people of that day. This has been going on for thousands of years, the same tactic. You want to oppress people and make them your slaves, well, they can't have weapons to defend themselves against your aggression, your violence. It only makes common sense, which is unfortunately what morons who've been indoctrinated don't have. Because they're state worshipers. They are the worshipers of violence. They don't understand that the state is violence, that it's not free will, it's violence. It's the initiation of coercive force against free will. That's what government is.